Welcome to Season 3, Episode 16 of the WeCOACH podcast. I'm your guest host, Marci, Director of Membership with WeCOACH, and as always, we'll sit down for candid conversations with women coaches, administrators, and industry influencers in the world of sports. Many thanks to our presenting partner, Huddle. They are continuing to level the playing field for women in sports, both through the technology they create and investing in programming like this podcast and Breakthrough Summit. For more information on how Huddle is helping teams compete with confidence and make every moment count, visit huddle.com. Okay, so what do you get when you bring three insanely awesome coaches together on vacation to share a couch and record a podcast? The quick answer is an endless conversation and lots of laughs, and definitely a little envy that I couldn't be there in person. So today we have a really cool twist to the show where we'll have three coaches joining the podcast from the sandy beaches of North Carolina, where they have all gathered together for some much appreciated fun, fellowship, sunrises, sunsets, delicious seafood, likely a few libations, and of course, plenty of laughs and reminiscing from the time they spent together with their NCAA Women Coaches Academy 2.0 Class Number 3 experience in 2019. I can't wait to jump into this episode and navigate this rowdy bunch and hear about some of the ways that Class 3 has chosen to support and be present with each other since they were last together 2 years ago. Welcome to the WeCOACH podcast, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourselves so that we can get started.
This is Ashley Bastron. I'm the associate head coach at Wake Forest University, working with the cross country and track teams. And my WeCOACH class was class 40, and then my 2.0 class was 3. My name's Kim Chavers. I'm the head coach for women's rowing at Michigan State University. I was in the WeCOACH Academy 40 and the 2.0 class number 3.
Hi, this is L.A. Lane. I'm the head faculty coach at Nicholls College, and I am WeCOACH class 14, so a little bit further back than these two fine ladies. And of course, the best 2.0 class would be class number 3.
Thank you for those thorough introductions, and gosh, certainly appreciate you coming off the beach to talk with us. So how's everybody doing?
We are doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having us.
That's so good to hear. And really, how could things not be wonderful right now? You just sent me the most gorgeous sunrise coming up over the North Carolina coastline, full of color, oranges, pinks, blues even, and tons of red. So getting ready to start a new day of vacation. So I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us to be on the show. This is the first time that we've had three coaches on the show at the same time. So this is going to be a real treat for our listeners to get, maybe three different perspectives, and just have a casual conversation about some of the things that you've been up to, and the only thing that's standing between you and the rest of your vacation is this podcast episode. So I'm looking forward to the energy that you're bringing and know that it's going to be a great, great episode. At the same time, I know that you're missing your classmates from 2.0 class 3 that were not able to make it here to be with you this week. So I guess you'll just have to plan another vacation sometime in the near future. And I know that that is probably already in the works, knowing the three of you. So I'm ready to get started if you're ready.
We're ready.
Well, first of all, let's recognize and appreciate just how cool it is that three very different sports are coming together with each of you. I mean, we've got field hockey, rowing, and track and field represented in the room right now. And, each of you are coming in with different experiences, different titles, different backgrounds, and you all decided to show up on a mostly sunny beach in North Carolina to vacation together. How did you get here?
So since our 2.0, we've had a group chat and kind of have stayed connected that way with our 2.0 classmates. And, during the pandemic, we had the opportunity to have some Zooms and stay connected that way, and started kind of talking about, the next time we were going to meet up and the next time we were going to connect. And LA played a big role in kind of helping get things organized and picking a place for us to go and reconnect this summer.
We had some really strong communications starting with COVID as a class. And from those discussions last spring, kind of threw out the idea of possibly once this pandemic was over, to be able to have the opportunity to reconnect as a group and to do it someplace fun and sunny. And for me, beach was the forefront of my decision-making process. And yeah, so it kind of, what happens when you put 3 coaches in a house on a beach for 5 straight days of fun. And it's been wonderful so far.
Yeah, Ashley, you're living in North Carolina. Was this a good opportunity for you just to kind of get away from everything and go in and hang out with some good coaching buddies?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely had the shortest drive of the group and was very happy that North Carolina was a state that we had identified pretty quickly as a good place to go. And I've never been to Oak Island, North Carolina before. So even though I live here, I'm still a first timer with the rest of the group, but I like LA. I love the beach. I love being on the water, and it was a great excuse to just check out for 5 days and go and get some R&R.
And Kim, I got to follow up with you too. I mean, being able to leave Michigan, that's where all the tourists just flock to during the summertime, and then to come south and hang out on the beach.
Yeah, Michigan is the third coast, surrounded by water on all 3 sides. But it's definitely different than the ocean. You stand there and it looks like the ocean, but doesn't smell like the ocean at all. So it's exciting to be back out east this way with everybody.
I think that's awesome that you guys made it a plan to do this. And unfortunately, the rest of your class had other things going on and they weren't able to join you for one reason or another. But hopefully, to set the stage, you got to start somewhere. And you guys have definitely done that. And I know that there will be future trips on the docks and getting planned too, right?
Absolutely. We're sending pictures and sharing bits of information with our class and our adventures.
So Academy 2.0, Class 3, graduated in 2019. You had a class size of 22. And I was looking at the roster, and there have been 9 coaches who have either taken new positions or have elevated their title in some way or another. That's over 40% of an upgrade rate. And I'd say that's not so bad in terms of gauging coaching success. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's phenomenal. And I would say, for myself personally, I think WeCOACH showed me how to advocate for myself, how to know my worth, and not stay somewhere where I didn't feel like my worth was valued as a coach and as a person. And so it definitely gave me the confidence to look for, I guess, that next bigger and better thing. And I'm really happy that I did, because Wake Forest has been a phenomenal home for me over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think for me, having the support of not only my classmates, but also everybody on the WeCOACH staff to help make that next step and to reach out in prepping for the interviews, or is this the right choice? Or do you know somebody at a particular institution? That's been super, super supportive. And one of the really big bonuses of our class, and really of the phenomenal staff that we were all blessed enough to be a part of.
And Kim, you followed Ashley a month later, not to Wake Forest, but you were going from Old Dominion University as an assistant coach and with no previous collegiate head coach experience to Michigan State. I mean, I feel like that's a huge jump right there.
It is. I mean, having gone to the first academy, I was definitely in a place with my coaching where I didn't feel a lot of community within the profession. And I think that's definitely something that WeCOACH kind of gave me. And so after the 2.0 class, just kind of felt the initiative to start looking for some of those next steps. And actually, when I was offered the interview at Michigan State, Ashley was the first person I called for advice and to talk about it. And her encouragement is definitely something that pushed me to take the interview and ultimately the position.
That's awesome. Power of network right there within one class. What are some other ways that you've benefited by utilizing the coaches in your classes? I mean, do you all get on like group calls? Do you have group chats? What is the communication level like?
What I've been able to enjoy is different types of communication, all the way from talking to our classmates about coaching, and obviously not the X's and O's because we're all different sports, but the actual coaching of the student athletes that we have. What do you do in this situation? Or how does this work at your institution? And all the way down to just catching up conversation. How are you doing in life? What's going on with your family? And being able to enjoy all the successes from on the field to their personal life with our group. And I think that's what's made us really connected and stayed connected 2 years out.
I mean, myself, I've often used it for resources as well. Like earlier this summer with our team, we were looking for a new goal setting worksheet. And, one of my first thoughts was to reach out to our 2.0 group. And within 30 minutes, I had 6 sheets sent to me, for suggestions for how to work a new one for our team. So it's just been a wealth of resources personally and professionally to stay engaged.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that if you've got those people that are right there in your back pocket at all time, you're going to find opportunities to be able to utilize them, whether it's like having them as a resource library, having those templates that you just want to check yourself. You want to be assured that you're not out there on an island. You're not doing this by yourself, that you've always got, what we call our 2.0 graduates are a flock. You're a flock of geese. So you always want to make sure that you've got your flock right there in your back pocket, especially after a year like this past year and change that we've had of, shifting the way that we've always done things in sport. What are some ways that you were able to get together and have continued conversations to continue the support through this past year?
Yeah, we did a lot of Zoom happy hours. I think in the height of the pandemic, it was at least once a month, if not more than once a month, that we were kind of jumping on to Zoom and just saying, okay, what are you doing? How are you staying sane? Like, we're all coaches, we're all busybodies, we're trapped in our homes right now. Like, what are you doing to, be continuing to learn and just better your craft? And what are you learning from this? And so, that was really great. And I think in a lot of ways too, like the pre-planning of this vacation started then. And even though there was not as many people here, as we originally hoped that there would be, and in some ways that was, I guess, a positive, because that meant recruiting was back and camps were back and family vacations and all of that stuff was back too. But I think that knowing like something like this could happen, or that life would return to normal, and encouraging each other in that way helped us get through the pandemic for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel can sometimes be a reward within itself. So Ashley, what would you say would be the key ingredient to keeping 22 women coaches together? Everybody's getting pulled in different directions. You all have different sports, different tasks, different timelines. Everything is completely different, but you made it a point to reach out and connect and go beyond coaching. I'm assuming that these conversations weren't just 24/7 coaching topics, but it was about creating, friendships and strong bonds that could last a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is being intentional. And that's something that I think our group has done a really good job of being intentional, of staying connected, being intentional, of making sure everyone knows, we're there for them, no matter what you need, whether it's you've had a bad day, you just need to laugh, or it's you need a team goal sheet, like what Kim said she needed. And so I think, that's the biggest thing for us. And I'm a big, proponent of, if an athlete says they don't have time for something, I tell them to say, well, that's not a priority. So flipping it that way, right? Like, don't say that you don't have time to connect with someone, or you don't have time to be intentional about your relationship. Say it's not a priority, and that stings a little bit more and checks yourself a bit more. So whenever I find myself saying, oh, I don't have time to recruit, or I don't have time to, connect with an athlete or a coworker. Like I said, if I flip it and say that recruiting is not a priority or connecting with a coworker is not a priority, I generally check myself pretty quick and realize, okay, it is a priority for me and I need to be intentional about that.
And what about you, LA? I mean, what are your thoughts on this class and being intentional about staying in touch the way that you have and hopefully will continue to do so? You made mention earlier in your introduction that class 3 was the best class. So what makes it the best class for you?
I think continuing to build on what we were so lucky to have in person. It's super easy when we're in the same space. We're all in Denver together. Very easy to have that contact and that connection there. We're always working on, our sport specific, getting better with skills, match play, systems of play, and all that stuff. But we are all seeing that adding the personal connection, adding that extra depth, that extra layer to our programs, and being intentional in putting that into play with us as coaches is just as important, and using that to foster the relationships, to continue to build the relationships that we're able to start in Denver. And it just really takes a couple people to continue the conversation, whether it's our group me message or whether it's a happy hour during, being trapped in everybody's houses. That was an important bit. And we just kind of grew from there, and our comfort level continued to grow. And it was an exciting process to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And LA, you mentioned that you actually had another one of the coaches in the academy come and speak to your group.
I did. So we did have the opportunity to play a little bit this spring, and Nicholls was bringing in somebody from Athlete Ally, virtually, of course, to speak with the student athletes and some of the leaders on our campus. But we had a game that day and felt, we couldn't take part of it. And I really wanted the women in our program to take advantage. So I reached out to Kelly Lawrence, who is an Athlete Ally ambassador, and asked if she would have a conversation with our women. We actually did it before the game, which I thought was really cool. The team was engaged, and it wasn't a kind of a canned type of presentation. It was exactly who Kelly is. It was a wonderful conversation. The team opened up. She shared her story and provided some great insight for us as athletes and as hopefully ambassadors at Nicholls to be able to make a difference and to, invite people in and to be a welcoming community.
That's awesome, being able to utilize each other. What are some other ways that you've reached out to the WeCOACH network, some of the other people that might be part of our faculty? I know, Ashley, you've had some connections with Betsy.
Yeah, I think Betsy's my Shiro. She's like who I want to be when I grow up, I always joke and say. But I connected, really well with a lot of the faculty and the different speakers that y'all brought in. But she was one that just really resonated with me, kind of what she stands for, who she is. I think communication is so important. And it's, I think I saw something the other day. She said people always reach out to a communication specialist if they have to do like a public speaking engagement event where you need to get on stage in front of 300 people. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do I communicate? But no one thinks about like the day to day. And we spend more time communicating than we do anything else in our lives. Maybe sleeping, that might be up there too. But, and so why not be really intentional about the way that you speak and the way you communicate? And instead of saying like, oh, I just don't understand kids these days, like they're just so hard to coach, like break that down and figure out how do you best communicate with them in order to be an effective coach. And that's all relationships. That communication is important, whether it's, coach athlete, it's coach to coach, it's coach to athletic director, your spouse, your family, like anything like that is just, it's so important to be in that area. So yeah, anytime I feel like I've got myself in a communication pickle, I'll reach out to her, as well as watching her ACT videos that she's got on Google. Those are free, so anyone can watch those. I've done her communications specialist course, and then recently signed up for her Gen Z course as well.
I love that Betsy Butterick plug right there. She's a great friend to the organization. And Betsy, if you're listening, I would love to hear your feedback on being called a shero. So that's pretty awesome. And Kim, what about you? Have you utilized any of the resources or connections that you've made through WeCOACH programming or through the academies that you've been able to use for your programs?
Yeah, I mean, with the instructors, I mean, I've stayed connected with Liz from Athlete Assessments, and actually during the start of the pandemic, had the opportunity to connect with her about different ways to stay connected with our team virtually. And she was a really wonderful resource for that, because rowing teams, as you're aware, are just huge rosters, and with everyone being all over the place and in different circumstances, we were finding, just trouble in staying connected. And she connected us with her Athlete Tough program, and we were able to do that in small groups as a team. And actually, our team had a contest where they were trying to bring a Zoom speaker in, and someone thought to reach out to her husband, Bo, and he came and spoke to the team on Zoom at one of our team meetings. And it was just wonderful to hear from him after having watched the Athlete Tough videos. And I highly recommend, their program and engaging with them outside of the academies.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the power of networking and utilizing the resources that are right there in front of us. And as coaches, we are perpetual learners and growers, and, always thinking about that growth mindset or ways to not only develop ourselves, but develop our programs and our student athletes. And so, LA, what are some things that you're thinking about right now in terms of getting yourself prepared to go back and coach your teams this fall?
I think what has been cool for me on this trip is being able just to have the time on the beach, listening to both Kim and Ashley talk about their programs and what they're doing within them. And then I'm processing, how can I turn what Ashley does in track and field and what Kim does in rowing? How can I tweak that and change it to be a field hockey based type of, whether it's training, whether it's how they're organizing their team, and going, all right, so they both have giant rosters. Their issues are different than mine with a smaller roster. But if you boil it down, we're all dealing with the same problem, but just with smaller numbers. And so that's been some of the things that, think about as I'm standing in the water in the ocean, enjoying the great North Carolina weather, but being able to not only enjoy ourselves, but to come back and add to my program and to be a better coach. So thank you guys for what you're doing for me to help me be stronger for the women that I'm coaching.
You're welcome.
And vice versa. I mean, LA has been a great resource to just listen and give some feedback and outside opinion. I think that's one of the greatest parts of the WeCOACH network, is that everybody has such a diverse background and diverse range of experiences within the sporting community. And just to learn from everyone has been a great experience.
There is a huge benefit in creating the bonds that you all have created. When you bring coaches together to brainstorm, to think about things, to share stories and experiences that you've had, it makes you better. It makes you think. It makes you reflect. It makes you grateful. And I think that goes a long way in keeping coaches in the profession a lot longer. And to find support, sometimes it just takes that one casual conversation where you're sharing, a funny incident that's happened within your program with another coach. And all of a sudden you have this connection and you share the same pain. So before we were hitting record this episode, we were, talking and sharing stories. And Kim, I loved one of the stories that you were talking about and would love for you to share it.
Yeah, so I mean, we were at a race this year where we were staying at a hotel that had a complimentary breakfast, And, they served it pandemic style. So it was like one person at a time. And when you're traveling with 60 people, it takes a long time and sometimes not all the options are available or whatever. So it took a little longer than usual. So we, delayed our departure for practice and, ultimately get to the race course and the team goes out and practices and all the coaches are on land. And about 3 hours after breakfast, I get a phone call from our team nutritionist because someone on the team was unhappy that there were only green bananas at breakfast, and green bananas give her heartburn. And she wanted the nutritionist to call me to see if I could get her different bananas. And, it makes you laugh because, she's on a trip with 7 staff members who are all there and could help her. And instead of, communicating with us, like she went around us. And, the most ironic part of the whole thing is that we had bananas under the bus. We could have given her one, and it's so just kind of like talking about those like silly communication things. And it's like, okay, it's funny, but at the same time, like moving forward, how do you help circumvent that happening again? Within your program, and just kind of talking about those silly little things within each team. And, like LA said, we're all in different circumstances, but facing similar things each year.
And I listened to Kim as an active communication technique and made sure that our bananas in the house were not green, so she would not have to go through that again.
Yeah, this is a green banana free zone. Only brown bananas here, though. I've learned Ashley doesn't like the brown ones, so we're gonna have to go back to the store again.
You guys are killing me. So it's not always about the X's and O's, right?
Definitely not. I think so much of coaching, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into on the front end. And I think the pandemic especially exposed a lot of that. I always joke that just the things sometimes that you hear as a coach, you don't know that you're necessarily supposed to hear, or that you're not prepared to hear and kind of speak on. And so those just kind of ridiculous and funny moments are, every coach has them, and it's nice to know that you're not alone in those moments.
Well, okay, you've heard it here first on the WeCOACH podcast that the majority of your communication challenges will most likely revolve around a banana at some point during your coaching career. All right, so to shift gears just a little bit, Kim, let's hear from you first. Since you participated in the mentor program, you're a gold level mentor, I would love for you to share some gold level mentoring advice to a young coach.
Yeah, I think you have to take the opportunities that you're presented with and look out for and try and find them, to help yourself grow as a coach, right? Like the person you start as in your coaching profession and your coaching experience can't be the person you end with, right? Like, so taking the initiative to find opportunities to continue to grow as a professional, and then also being invested in your community. Like if you were a doctor, you'd be invested in research projects and you'd be invested in, the science of the medical community. And it's the same idea with coaching, being invested in things as they change and develop, and as the coaching profession grows, and in investing in that community, from a mentorship standpoint and, female coaches standpoint, and helping leave a positive impact within the profession, I think is really huge. So thinking about it, outside of your direct team and your direct sport, thinking about it from a greater perspective as well, because it's easy to get kind of stuck in your blinders on, like little silo of your own world.
That's fantastic advice, Kim. LA, you participated in the mentor program this past year. What were some of the topics or advice that you provided to your mentees?
To not be afraid to put yourself out there and make an ask to somebody within your same sport who's maybe been in the profession longer than you have, and ask for their advice, ask to observe a practice, because when you boil it all down to it, we all want the same exact thing, which is for all the student athletes that play for us to have a really positive, powerful experience. And if we are modeling that behavior of reaching out to other programs, to other coaches, then our players are going to see that as a behavior that they're going to carry with them throughout life. And that just because there's been a coach that's been coaching for 30 years and you fangirl every time she walks by you and says hello, It doesn't mean that she's unapproachable and he or she is unapproachable, and just step up. We all want to help each other. And that was something that we really talked about quite a bit, whether as a group or when we talk to each other individually.
Oh, yeah. LA, you're right. I mean, modeling is such an important behavior for our student athletes. And Ashley, what about you? You've been in coaching for about 9 years now. You're right on the cusp of being a gold level mentor in the WeCOACH mentor program. How would you lead in that role? What type of advice would you provide to a young coach?
Yeah, I think, for me, number one is staying true to who you are. I think early on in your coaching career, there's a lot of trying to mimic another coach that you look up to, or trying to be what you think society or the coaching world's telling you to be. And so you're trying to put yourself into this little box, and that doesn't work. Athletes pick up when you're not authentic. Recruits pick up when you're not authentic. And so the older I've gotten, the more years in coaching, the more I've been okay with being who I am and showing who I am. And I think that also comes around or on the same page as showing that you're imperfect and you're human. I think early on, again, I never wanted to show mistakes to my athletes, or I didn't want a coworker to see a mistake. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I messed this up. That's on me. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'll call out my mistakes in front of the kids. I'll call out my mistakes in front of staff. And I think that helps so much with my mentees to say, oh, yep, I've done that, failed miserably. This is then what I did to fix it and not have it happen again. And so I think if you show your athletes it's safe to fail, and you show your mentees it's safe to fail, they feel a lot more comfortable in being okay with I'm going to make mistakes, but I'll grow and I'll learn and I'm going to get better because of them. And then I think lastly, dropping your ego, because it's very hard in coaching to not have one. But it oftentimes only gets in your way, and it certainly doesn't serve you. And there's a lot of just negative emotions that can come up with that. And I think when you have too big of an ego in the sport, your direct worth becomes, the result on a piece of paper, the result on your university website. And that doesn't lead to a very fulfilling, coaching career long-term, or just life long-term.
Yeah, that's a fantastic concept, Ashley. I mean, I kind of refer to that, when you were talking about making mistakes and owning them and sharing them and admitting them and moving on, is failing up. So it sometimes takes a little bit of failure in order to get to that next level. So yeah, there's some great ideas there. All right, moving into the next topic, and I know this group has been very vocal about it, especially ULA, and I want to make sure that I address it before you sneak it in there, but you've been very vocal about what would an NCAA Women Coaches Academy 3.0 look like, right? Full disclosure, there is no 3.0 right now. We have the NCAA Women Coaches Academy. We have the NCAA Women Coaches Academy 2.0, and Class 3 has come up with the idea that they want to be able to meet in person again as a class and take the conversations to the next level. And know that they've been talking about it. They've been talking about it with staff, and certainly something that is on our radar for what next level would look like. But Ella, you've got some ideas, and I know that you would want to share the different ways that you feel like you and this class can continue to live out the legacy of the Coaches Academy, and also be contributors for whatever that next level may look like. If you wanted to share some of your ideas.
Our group got connected in a short amount of time, and then we felt, we needed another day. But for us not to have the opportunity to be together again, that was really honestly sad. And we loved what we learned and garnered from the staff members of WeCOACH, and we were so lucky to have who we have there. But we also learned a lot from our peers in a short amount of time, and how cool the next step would be for each of us to be able to present and have each other learn a good cohort to expand our coaching knowledge and really expand who we are as women. And that's kind of what it looks like for me, is just being able to share, but also hearing honestly what we're talking about here on the beach, but in a classroom setting and with everybody from our class. That's kind of my vision. I think somehow trying to figure out how to get the 22 of us back in the same room, because we did get to that safe space, the ability to be vulnerable with each other and open up and have somebody tell you whether, no, here's how I think maybe you should change your focus and change your way of thinking to get you to a better space. And then us being able to go, yeah, you know what, you're right. Thank you for being that, giving me that honest feedback.
Yeah, I think, LA has said like the Coaches Academy was our bachelor's degree, and then 2.0 was our master's degree, and then 3.0 would be like our doctorate. So, what is my passion project, I guess, that I would want to bring forth to the coaches in our academy for 3.0 and vice versa. So now we all get to be an expert at something, and then we bring that knowledge to our group.
What would yours be, Ash?
I've thought about this, and I think I would either go the communication route and channel my inner Betsy, or I would do something along the lines of, landing that job. I think I am very good at the interview process. I'm very meticulous and organized when it comes to that. I think I also am good at encouraging someone to go after that big job. I think Kim is a good case in point there of helping her to see her worth and bring that to the table, and then come in a very organized manner that shows, hey, she's ready. She may not have been a head coach before, but she's ready to take over this program. And, here's why.
Yeah, you should do that one.
So I'll do that one. What about you, Kim?
My first instinct was to say something sarcastic, like how to purchase bananas, or like nutrition crisis management. But I do think that like that idea of like team communication crisis would be something cool. Like, how do you handle a situation where like you could fly off the handle about the green banana situation, right? Like somebody going to the nutritionist versus like communicating with you. And it's like, okay, like the communication like hiccup has happened. Like, how do you now move forward from that in a way that's more productive, right? Because if somebody's going to circumvent you about a banana, imagine what else they're doing it with. And so I think it's like when you see those breakdowns between like people, like how do you move forward from it in a productive way versus a confrontational way?
Kim, would you ever tap dance into talking about motherhood, having 3 little girls and juggling that in addition to coaching duties?
Yeah, it's interesting to say the least. I feel like I thought I had a really good balance with it before the pandemic happened, and then the pandemic happened and taught me that I knew nothing. And so it's been, kind of figuring that out all over again. And not in a bad way. I think, I've learned a lot from it and kind of how to support, both areas, like my team and my family a little bit better, kind of just reshifting some of that focus. And it is funny because, I think my kids, like they're just starting to dabble in doing sports and activities and things like that. And to see them, look up to like our athletes and my peers and things like that, I think has been really cool as well. They're actually on vacation during this as well at Grandma and Grandpa's house. So they had their vacation and I got mine.
That's awesome, because I know that a lot of our coaches in the community are mothers, and they're trying to balance and find the balance. And yeah, no doubt the pandemic has been a humbling experience for all of us for many different reasons, especially for those who are coaching with little ones at home. And then also now becoming a school teacher and managing time has been a little bit different, I'm sure. And then LA, what about you? What would be your expert levels or leadership give back points?
I think for kind of what is happening to women coaches across the country, as far as different standards being asked to do multiple different things that your male counterparts are not being asked to do, and recognizing what to say, how to say it, and honestly, to be straightforward, ways to protect your job and to help to keep women in coaching, and to see that with time management, with things that you can do, you can stay. It doesn't have to be either or. I mean, Kim is a great example of that. She worked a family vacation around this. Each part of her family is having their own vacation. And that's an important part for herself, for her kids, for her husband. That's huge. And help coaches recognize that you can be up front, not have to worry that because you're dealing with your family, that your job is going to be at crisis because you are a female coach.
All of these ideas that you've all brought up hold a lot of value, because those are all different things that we all deal with as coaches that are going to keep us in our positions longer, keep us happier, keep us feeling supported, and hopefully advancing in our profession. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we were hoping to be able to touch on? Because I've got a few rapid fire questions that I can't wait to throw at you.
Is one of your rapid fire questions about LA's tattoo?
No, it's not, but now it is. So every episode ends with rapid fire, and we're going to start off with you, LA. What kind of tattoo do you have that might be inspired by your flock?
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, I had a couple of other tattoos that I got yes, they were for me, but had different reasons and meanings behind them, but it wasn't me. And number one, that's what coming back from WeCOACH was all about. It was an emotional experience leaving Denver. I got to spend some time at Red Rocks with Liz Smith, and that was a really cool way to end the trip. And just reflecting upon my experiences with the women in my class, with the staff, wanted to do something to help commemorate that and to keep the feeling of being in a huddle and being in a group. So I have a ladybug on my wrist, and the little spots on the ladybug, on the first side, there's a 2 for 2.0. 2.0 made it look a little bit busy and didn't want to do that. And then the other side is a 3 to commemorate our class 3. And so it's something I'm able to look at on a daily basis, and whether it makes me smile and happy and remember some of the fun times that we had, or if I'm having a rough day, it brings me back to what I gained from that experience and what I continue to gain on a daily basis. I know that I can pick up the phone and call anybody in that class, and that would help out and to be that voice of reason. And what's great is that when you have multiple time zones, if you're having a rough day at 11 o'clock at night on the East Coast, you've got West Coast friends that you can call, and Midwest friends that you can call. So it was a really cool thing to do, and I had a great tattoo artist, and it looks pretty darn fantastic. And I just got to figure out a way to weave 3.0 into this tattoo.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see a picture of that. So that's really cool. Now, that wasn't necessarily a rapid answer, but I loved all the detail going in behind that. That was good stuff. Thanks for prompting that, Ashley. All right, so let's jump into some real rapid fire. We've chatted before, and we were talking about theme songs. And Ashley, I want you to tee this up for us, because you kind of helped create this rapid fire question, but I think it's sort of fun, and it says a lot about each of you as coaches.
So one of my favorite questions to ask people to get to know them on kind of that next level, not so much surface, is what is the theme song of their life? And you have to have 2 components. So one, lyrically, it has to align with your life from a lyrical standpoint. And then 2, the beat. So if you are the star of a movie and you're walking out, spotlights on you, the beat of the song would be what's playing in the background, because generally there's no lyrics in those movie scenes. It's just the beat. So the theme song of my life, and has been the theme song of my life for about 15 years now, is Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas. LA, what's the theme song of your life?
Took a little bit of dancing, but U2 was always going to be the band, and you went with Beautiful Day.
I can't commit to one song. I have been thinking about this for the last 18 hours, and it's driving me crazy. I feel like mine is a mashup of all different things. So I feel like it would just change each what are they, lyric to lyric or section to section of the song, of just all different things. I don't know. I can't commit to one. Marci, what is yours?
Oh, Kim, come on. You got to share at least one song, or maybe share two. As a matter of fact, okay, so we'll come back to you. I had to come up with two songs. I have my quiet song, and then I have my activity song. And so, yeah, there's two phases of life, right? So, Good Day with Nappy Roots is my outgoing and in public song. And then when things are a little bit more quiet and feeling a little bit more introverted, it would be my favorite band, which is Head in the Heart and Let's Be Still.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kim, come on, the last chance.
Oh gosh, I found it so hard to pick one.
I mean, are you going old school, like inspiration, like One Moment in Time by Whitney Houston? Remember what she did for the 1988 Olympics? There was this whole montage. That was another one.
What were some of the ones you played yesterday?
Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
See, I feel like it could be anything. The 90s rock music is my favorite genre of music. But then if you're looking at the lyrics of some of those, I don't know that I want them to be the theme song to my life. So I feel like I could do something like that. I like, who sings that song Confident? Is that Demi Lovato? I like that one. I like Avicii. That there's a song called Levels that's mostly music. Maybe that one. It has a few lyrics. How about we go with that?
All right, perfect. I just want to make sure that we all had something out there that could reveal a little bit. I thought that was a great question, Ashley. And yeah, you're right. It's a great way to kind of get to know somebody beyond surface. So LA, you're a sunrise, sunset connoisseur. Where's the best place that you have ever caught a sunrise or a sunset?
Best sunrise, hands down, in Spain. We went on a team trip in 2017, got up every morning for sunrise. We were on a beach town called Steeches. I'm probably destroying the pronunciation. The sun was able to come up just on the other side of a church, and the colors were perfect. And I was able to get up every morning and take a walk. And the only thing I couldn't get was coffee because no coffee shops are open at sunrise. But my number one favorite spot.
Perfect. Ashley, you, in addition to running and more running, what are some of the best hikes you've been on? What location?
Man, well, you give me all my good hiking along the AT. And I think the Grayson Highlands hike that we did last summer was phenomenal. You had the wooded greenery, you had the rocky, more expansive, I guess, reach. And then you had the wild ponies everywhere that kept trying to chase our dogs. And that was fun in and of itself. And the layered peaks of the Blue Ridge Mountains, especially at the sunset, was just incredible. So I think that one hike just kind of had it all for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good place. I love the ponies. Kim, what are you doing in your free time when you don't have a vacation plan to North Carolina, or you are not at home with the kids, or you're not at practice? What are you doing for you?
I do try to schedule time to work out or read or listen to podcasts, or sometimes it even turns into Netflix or whatever, but trying to have just a few minutes to separate from all of that, I think is important. Important self-care, important life skill to schedule out time where you're taking care of yourself. And I think whatever that item is can change all the time. Even if it's going to get coffee by myself, whatever it is, I think trying to find little moments like that I do like to get coffee and like go to the boathouse when no one is there, kind of thing. And not necessarily to do work, but just like to, you're outside, you can see the sunrise or sunset there really nicely. And so just trying to find little moments like that.
And your coffee of choice, my friends.
My coffee of choice. Ooh. I do like a lot of variety, and I'm going to sound really corny. I'm so embarrassed to admit that I am a pumpkin spice fan. So I really do like pumpkin spice coffee and lattes. And I feel so cheesy and basic saying that, but I have always really liked pumpkin. And so we actually got coffee here and somewhere had a pumpkin spice, and I was just so excited.
She was in heaven.
I was. It was so good.
PSL right there. All right. So you guys are hosting a dinner party tonight. You didn't know it, but you are. You each get to bring somebody. Who are you bringing? Quick. First person that comes to mind.
Betsy.
You.
Me?
You're Marci, you are one of us. You are part of really our journey in our class. So 100% it would be you.
Oh, LA, thank you. All right, so we got a fun dinner party going. All right, what about you, Kim?
Michelle Obama. I love her. She's great. I read her book. She's awesome. I love her perspective on women and diversity and keeping young kids active and just general like life and health. So yeah, Michelle Obama.
And then can we just invite the rest of our class, and then it's a huge party?
Yes, absolutely. So class 3, Academy 2.0, class 3, you're listening. Next time, we're all going to get at the dinner table, and Michelle Obama is coming. Betsy's going to make an appearance, and we're going to have a great conversation. And I'd like to bring the rest of our WeCOACH staff. I know that they would love to have conversations over a dinner table.
We're going to need a bigger bowl of guac.
Who's cooking, and what are we having? Out of the three of you, who's the chef?
Yeah.
Well, since we are at the beach, we would get some nice, freshly caught seafood. Perhaps some of the people we've met on the pier fishing, we can have them catch something other than the shark that we saw yesterday. Scallops, shrimp, and we'd have to probably throw in some barbecue. We'll make it a good old potluck, but cooking is enjoyable and it's relaxing for me. Scallops, I think, are my best dish thus far.
Sounds delicious. A little surf and turf. That was a lot of fun. I had a great time with you guys, and I know that the student athletes that each of you coach feel very fortunate to have your leadership, your expertise, and just your growth mindset leading their charge. Kim, I suggest you make sure that you get the correct bananas and have them available at all times. But
I'm going to bring a variety of ripened bananas on all of our team trips moving forward. So we have green all the way through to brown, so I can meet every preference.
Perfect. But know that you each have a purpose and you're fulfilling it, and you've made us all a little bit better just by sharing your wisdom today. So thank you for that. It's been a blast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to today's episode, and thanks to our podcast partners, Huddle and Wisp Sports. Make sure to follow us on social media for a list of our upcoming events, and check us out online at wecoachsports.org to learn more about how you can be engaged in our women coaches community. As a reminder, WeCOACH is a nonprofit membership-based organization existing to support women coaches of all sports and levels. Until next time,
All sports, one voice, WeCOACH.